Hey, welcome to Victims and Villains. My name is Josh. Today we're jumping into Some Bad Things, a Shudder original. This movie tells the story of an individual who inherits a hotel and wrestles with whether or not to sell it, and in the process of said wrestling actually experiences some pretty strange things. It is going to be incredibly difficult to talk about this movie without talking about The Shining. There are literally scenes that are directly lifted from The Shining and placed into this film, and you can definitely tell that there's a lot of Kubrick influence here. Really neither a good thing or a bad thing. It's just really hard to watch this movie without feeling the heavy influence of Kubrick on this movie. And because you have the influence of The Shining, that makes this movie incredibly predictable. And honestly, this movie, it just kind of feels like a mid-tier horror film. Like, there are definitely good things about it. The climax is definitely one of the best climaxes we've gotten in any horror film in 2023. There are definitely some moments within the film woven throughout that are definitely kind of these like WTF, mind-bending, Lynchian type of things that kind of happen. This movie definitely as a whole really struggles to find its identity. There are portions of the film that are trying to create tension with Gayle Rankin and Hari Neff's character because of like unfaithfulness between the two characters and their checkered past, but also at the same time it's also trying to establish equal tension between its core cast of characters. There's never actually a singular moment where that tension actually seems to work here. It's kind of the moments where this movie does work is the moments where it actually has you as the viewer questioning the reality of the world that you're experiencing. I think when this movie actually fully embraces its more absurd moments is when it really seems to kind of take flight and really work. Nearly every performance in this movie is really good, but I have to talk about Rankin in particular. Rankin in particular gives an exceptional performance in this movie. I think this movie is not as effective if it isn't for Rankin's performance in this movie. Rankin just has this ability to really walk between this really charismatic character, but also at the same time really embracing the crazier, kind of more psychological elements of the film's narrative. I think it's in the latter portions where you definitely get to see Rankin's capability as a performer. This movie is only a mere 85 minutes, but there are definitely moments within this film where the pacing definitely drags. Stewart Thorndike is the film's writer and director, and as a director, I think he does an incredibly great job giving the direction. It's the script that I really have problems with. This film definitely introduces a lot of ideas that are influenced by the genre, ranging from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to the aforementioned Shining, but never really kind of fleshes out any of those ideas or imagery. And they just feel like homages that just kind of ultimately at its core kind of make this movie feel like a collage of horror's greatest hits. And that's kind of my problem with this movie is that it has its moments and then it has its potential, and that potential is just kind of squandered. Let's run this through the Rorschach rating scale, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and give Bad Things a 3 out of 5. I think this movie has literally just as much good as it does bad. It is literally a mixed bag, and that is like the best way that I can describe this movie. Gayle Rankin's performance is the absolute anchor that is the reason to watch this movie. I think this movie has some great gags in it. It has beautiful Shining homages, but it doesn't really have a lot of substance to kind of pack its punch to really flesh out a lot of these ideas that writer-director Stewart Thorndike has, and that's kind of ultimately its undoing. But you can decide for yourself when Bad Things hits Shudder and AMC Plus beginning this Friday, August 18th. If you guys have seen this, I got to catch it during its festival run. What did you guys think? Comment below and let me know. But let's talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're talking about, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. I actually want to talk about Hari Nef's arc throughout the course of this for this section of the video. So in the course of this movie, it is introduced that Gayle Rankin's character and Hari Nef's character are in fact together. They have a little bit of a checkered past, and the reason that being is because Rankin's character has been unfaithful to Nef's character. And as someone that has gone through infidelity, has been cheated on, that really does kind of mess with your perception of your self-image, your self-worth, and kind of also gives you this warped sense of reality that if they come back to you, then everything will be better and will be completely different than it was before. As someone that has gone through something similar to Nef's character and has been on the receiving end of it, that really does mess with your self-worth, your self-identity, and also how you see your own self. You start to question things like, am I worthy to actually be loved? And so things like depression and suicide and self-harm, all of these kind of really toxic ideas start to plague your mental health and start to really skew the way that you see yourself. And even start to skew the way that you view yourself in terms of relationships. Like, am I worthy to be loved? Am I enough to be accepted by one person, to be loved and pursued by one person? The truth of the matter is that you absolutely 100% are worthy of love and worthy of the attention. And so if you've ever been cheated on, if you've ever been lied to, if you've ever gone through any shred of deception during a committed relationship, I'm sorry. I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart, because I know how deeply that pain cuts. So I just want to say that if you or someone you know is struggling as a result of that and are incurring things like depression, suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, first off, you're not alone. And second off, there are resources in the show notes below to help. We create this content so that you never feel like you're alone, and so that it is a constant reminder that there is hope. I hope that's an encouragement to you guys. Bad Things hits Shudder on August 18th. In the show notes below, you guys will find links to all of our podcasts, movie reviews like this one, Patreon, and also that subscribe button. So make sure that you guys hit that below and check it out. We will be back later, talk about more spooky stuff and more pop culture. Stay classy.